Friends, I am N.K. Thukral from Edupedia World. Students, we have been discussing on principles of management in the previous sessions. Today I am going to discuss on significance of principles of management. As you know, the principles are very important for any organization to be followed by the managers. In every organization, physical and human resources are used. Physical means is a material, machines, money, etc. And human resources means manpower. The function of management is nothing but to put them to optimum use or avoid wastage of resources. And it is possible only when a manager makes use of principles of management. The principles of management are in the form of predetermined solutions for repeatedly occurring problems. They guide the manager. It is very important for every manager to know them thoroughly. So that's only when they know the principles, only then they can apply and they implement in the organizations. The principles of management provide useful insights to managerial behavior and influence managerial practices. Principles guide managers in taking and implementing decisions. The importance of management principles is by providing manager with useful insights into reality, optimum utilization of resources and effective administration, and scientific decisions are taken, and by meeting changing environmental requirements, and by fulfilling social responsibility, and also by management training, educational and research. Now let's go one by one how I can describe that the principles of management are important in the organization. Number point is providing useful insight to managers. So how is this important? The principles of management were developed on the basis of experience of various professional people. The principles make the manager aware about the manner in which he should act in various situations so that he does not repeat the mistakes of previous managers. The principles of management improve knowledge, ability and understanding of managers. They also provide timely guidance which helps in increasing the efficiency of managers. Principles enables managers to learn from past mistakes and to save time by solving recurring problems quickly. Now let's take an example. For example, according to this principle of management, a division of work. A job is divided into many small units. Every unit or part is assigned to different individuals. Each individual does the same work repeatedly that has been assigned. He gets used to it, which helps him to perform his job efficiently and quickly. Consequently, the entire job is completed in an economical manner. And now, let's go ahead. Next point is optimum utilization of resources. The resources available with the company are limited and they need to be put to optimum use. By optimum use, we mean that resources are used in a manner that give maximization. I mean to say that give maximum benefit with minimum cost. Principle facilitate optimum use of resources by coordinating the physical, financial and human resources. The cause and effect relationship avoids trial and error approach and reduces inefficiency, wastage and spoilage in use of resources. For example, principles of division of work, unity of direction, order, etc. facilitates better utilization of human and physical resources. Further, the primary need of every organization is that its administrative system should be effective. Only that administrative system is called effective where the managers can take balanced and quick decisions. In order to take such decisions, sufficient information and authority should be available. So what I mean to say, sufficient authority also should be available as well as information. This is made possible with the help of the principle of management. Let's take an example. The principle of authority and responsibility advocates granting of sufficient authority, while the principle of scalar chain advocates making adequate provision for providing information. Next point is effective administration. How this is possible and how this is important. Principle of management make administration more effective by discouraging personal prejudices and biases. These principles insist on adopting an objective approach. For example, principle of subordination of individual interest to general interest give more importance to achieve of organizational objectives. Next point of importance is scientific decisions. A scientific decision means a balanced decision. The principles of management provide the necessary training to the managers so that they can take scientific or balanced decisions. In the absence of these principles, the managers have to adopt the method of trial and error. According to this principle, one is expected to do a job in particular manner, and if there is some error, some other method has to be adopted. In this way, the work is done in different ways till the error is eliminated. This method is not proper, but however, therefore the managers are trained with the help of the principles of management, which makes them capable of taking scientific decisions. For example, the principle of authority and responsibility tells us that if a subordinate is entrusted with some responsibility, he should be allowed sufficient authority to accomplish it. Only in such a situation, a subordinate will be able to take a scientific decision whenever needed. Further, for example, Taylor's principle of science and rule of thumb stresses on scientific analysis of each part of work. Next point of importance is meeting changing environmental requirements. In modern times, only such a business unit can remain alive and develop which can keep pace with the rapidly changing environment. Now you need to understand that as well as environment changes, we have to keep pace with that. In every field of business activity, it may be production, it may be marketing, etc., new techniques are emerging every day. Managers who can understand the changing situation well in time can alone face competition successfully. The principle of management enables the manager to face this challenge. Let's take an example, the principle of unity of direction, which tells us that all the activities connected with the attainment of the same objective should be completed under the direction of the same manager. In doing so, a manager would be able to have the detailed information connected with the limited activities being done under his direction. In case the activities connected with different objectives are being done under the direction of one manager, he will not be able to understand the changes being affected in any activity. So now let's go ahead. Next important point is fulfilling social responsibility. The principle of management increases the efficiency of the managers and enables them to fulfill their social responsibility. More efficient managers can make good quality products at reasonable prices available all the times. For example, the principle of fair remuneration, which advocates appropriate remuneration to the employees and helps in fulfilling responsibility towards them. Next point is management training, education and research. The principles helps to increase knowledge and are used as a basis for management training, education and research. Due to this reason, principles have also been included in graduate courses like BCom, BBA, BBS, etc. and postgraduate courses. These principles enable refinement of management practices and facilitates development of new management techniques. The principles of management are actually providing education and training to the managers by enriching their theoretical and practical knowledge. For example, in order to take advantage of the change of attitude among the managers, various big companies have established research and development department in HRD. Consequently, many new techniques have come to light in the field of marketing, production, finance, etc. So these are the points of importance of principles of management. Now let's go ahead, students. Now I would like to talk on Fayol's principles of management. Now let me tell you the background that in the last century, organizations already had to deal with management in practice. In early 1900, large organizations such as production factories had to be managed too. At the time, there were only few management tools, models and methods available. Now, the scientists came here there. Thanks to the scientist, this Henri Fayol, in 1841, the first foundations were laid for modern scientific management. These first concepts, also called principles, are the underlying factors for successful management. Henri Fayol explored this comprehensively, and as a result, he synthesized the 14 principles of management. Now, before I proceed on principles, of management laid down by Henri Fayol, let us understand who was Henri Fayol. Henri Fayol, from 1841 to 1925, was a French-managed theorist. He graduated from the Mining Academy of Saint Etienne in 1860 in mining engineering. He joined a French mining company in 1860 as an engineer and rose to the position of its managing director in 1888. At that time, the company was at the verge of bankruptcy. With the rich and broad administrative experience, Fayol contributed a lot in turning the fortune of the company. When he retired in 1918, the company was in excellent condition. Now students, let me brief you on contributions by Henri Fayol. Fayol found that activities of an industrial organization could be divided into 6 groups: technical, commercial, financial, security, accounting and managerial. He made clear distinction between technical and managerial skill. Fayol was the first to identify 4 functions of management, that is planning, organizing, directing and controlling. Fayol not only identified management as a separate field of endeavor but also developed 14 principles which act as guidelines for manager. Mainly, the contribution of Henri Fayol was on division of authorities, identifying functions, developed principles of management. Now let's go ahead and talk on the principles framed by Henri Fayol. Number 1 principle, as you can see in the slide, is division of work. In practice, employees are specialized in different areas and they have different skills. Different level of expertise can be distinguished within the knowledge area. Personal and professional development support this. According to Henri Fayol, specialization promotes efficiency of the workforce and increases productivity. In addition, the specialization of the workforce increases their accuracy and speed. The management principles of 14 principles of management is applicable to both technical and managerial activity. Now, division of work means division of work refers to dividing the work into compact jobs and allocating these compact jobs to different individuals. Fayol recommended that work of all kinds must be divided and allocated as per competence, qualification and experience. Division makes each task simpler and repetitive performance helps in gaining speed, accuracy and specialization. This principle applies to both managerial as well as technical work, as I earlier said. Due to this reason, big companies have separate departments for finance, marketing, production and human resources. Now, for example, a bank involves several operations like collection of cash, payment, issue of check, books, etc. All these activities are performed by different persons. It improves their efficiency and makes them specialized in their respective fields. Now let's see what are the advantages of this principle and what are the consequences of violation. The advantage is that it leads to specialization as work is divided as per qualifications. Number 2, it simplifies the work and increases the efficiency as the same work is performed repeatedly. And what are the consequences of violation? There will be lack of efficiency and specialization, and there will be waste of time and efforts due to changes from one work to another. Now this was the principle of division of work. The second principle he framed was authority and responsibility. Now what is there in that? In order to get things done in an organization, management has the authority to give orders to the employees. Of course, with this authority comes responsibility. According to Henri Fayol, the accompanying power or authority gives the management the right to give orders to the subordinates. The responsibility can be traced back from performance and it is therefore necessary to make agreements about this. In other words, authority and responsibility go together and they are two sides of the same coin. Further, I may tell you that authority is the right to give orders to subordinate and responsibility, it is a duty which a subordinate is expected to perform by virtue of his position in organization. So what I said, authority and responsibility go hand in hand. Parity between authority and responsibility helps in meeting responsibility on time and prevent misuse of authority. Now further he said, authority is of two types: official authority, which is the authority to command and personal authority, which is the authority of the individual manager. Authority is both formal and informal. Now let's see what are the advantages and what are the consequences of this violation of this principle. It prevents misuse of authority. These are the positive effects. And second, it helps in fixing responsibility. And what is the consequences of violation? If responsibility exceeds authority, then subordinate cannot perform his duties. Number two, if authority exceeds responsibility, subordinate may misuse it. Third principle is discipline. What is discipline? Discipline refers to obedience to rules and regulations of the organization, which is necessary for systematic working of the organization. According to Fayol, discipline requires good supervisor at all levels, clear and fair agreement regarding rules, and judicious application of penalties. Lack of discipline results in chaos and leads to disruption in systematic work of the organization. So discipline is must for all the enterprises and for all levels. Now, what are the advantages and what are the consequences of violation of this principle? Advantages: number one, smooth and systematic functioning of the business and better relations between management and employees. And what are the consequences of violation? There may be disobedience of rules and regulations by employees, and relations between management and employees may not be so cordial. Next principle is unity of command. What is this? The management principle unity of commands means that an individual employee should receive orders from one manager and the employee is answerable to that manager. If tasks and related responsibilities are given to the employee by more than manager, this may lead to confusion, which may lead to possible conflicts for employees. By using this principle, the responsibility for mistakes can be established more easily. Now, dual subordination creates confusion in the subordinates and conflict between the superior. So, in order to avoid confusion, conflicts, disharmony, and many other unpleasant situations, the employee should receive orders from one boss only. The principle resembles military organization. And further, according to Fayol, if this principle is violated, then authority is undermined, discipline is jeopardized, order disturbed, and stability threatened. The principle resembles military organization. For example, if marketing manager allows the sales executive to grant 10% discount, whereas finance manager instructs not to offer more than 5% discount, then there is a lack of unity of command. Now, what are the advantages of this principle? Advantages are that there will be no confusion in the minds of subordinates and responsibility can be easily fixed, and further, better performance as subordinates receive orders from one superior only. Now, what are the consequences if violation takes place? It will be difficult to fix responsibility, lack of discipline, and it creates confusion for subordinate as well to whose order is to be complied with. So, this is what unity of command is. Another principle framed by Fayol is unity of direction. Now, what is this? Unity of direction implies that there should be one head and one plan for group activities having same objectives. According to this principle, all the units of an organization should be moving towards the same objectives through coordinated and focused efforts. It ensures unity of action and coordination and avoids unnecessary duplication of efforts. Example is, if a company is manufacturing motorcycle as well as cars, then it should have two separate divisions for both of them. Each division should have its own in charge, plans and resources. Now, what are the advantages of this principle? It emphasizes importance of common goals and helps in achieving them, and it ensures unity of action and facilitate coordination. And what are the consequences of violation? Unnecessary duplication of efforts and wastage of resources, and there will be lack of coordination. Next principle is subordination of individual interest to general interest. According to this principle, interest of the organization as a whole must prevail over the interest of the individuals or employees. Now, there are always kinds of interest in an organization. In order to have an organization function well, Henri Fayol indicated that personal interests are subordinate to the interest of the organization. The primary focus is on the organization objectives and not on those of individuals. This applies to all levels of entire organization, including the managers. Organization is superior to individual, as I said. In case individual interest and organization interest differ, it is the duty of the management to reconcile them. A manager can ensure this principle through his behavior. For example, he should not misuse his power for his own benefit at the cost of general interest of the workers or company. This will ensure same behavior by the workers. Let's take an example. If a manager's objective is to earn more salary and company is going through financial crisis and wants to cut down expenses, then manager must sacrifice his interest. Manager can achieve his objective when organization recovers from financial crisis. Now, what are the advantages? It helps in achieving goals of the organization, and it brings coordination between individual and organization objectives. And what are the consequences of violation? The firm will not be able to achieve its goals and lack of coordination between individual and organizational objectives. Now let's go ahead on the next principles framed by Henri Fayol. Next principle is remuneration of employees. Now what is this? According to this principle, overall pay and compensation should be fair to both employees and organization. Motivation and productivity are close to one another as far as the smooth running of an organization is concerned. This management principle of the 14th principle of management argues that remuneration should be sufficient to keep employees motivated and productive. There are two types of remuneration, namely non-monetary and monetary compensations. The remuneration should be just, fair, and to everybody. Employees should be paid fair wages. We should give them at least a reasonable standard of living, and at the same time, it should be within the paying capacity of the company. Now, what are the advantages? High level of motivation as they are paid fully and services rendered, and cordial relations between employees and management, and improvement in commitment of employees towards organization. Now, what are the consequences of violation? Is a lack of motivation among employees, unhealthy relations between employees and management, and increase in labor turnover. Now, next principle is centralization and decentralization. According to this principle, there should be proper balance between centralization and decentralization in the organization. Centralization implies the concentration of decision-making authority at the top management, sharing of authorities for decision-making process with low levels. And what is decentralization? Degree of centralization and decentralization depends on the various factors such as experience of superior, ability of subordinates, size of the organization, etc. Generally, large organizations have more decentralization than small organizations. Too much centralization leads to delay in work, and complete decentralization leads to loss of control of top management. So, an optimum balance should be maintained according to the needs of the organization. Now, what are the advantages? Let's first take an example of this. Authority to take vital decisions must be of top management, and operational authority must be given to middle and low level managers. And what are the advantages? It leads to quick decisions at middle and operation level. It decreases workload of superiors and increases in the encouragement and motivation levels of subordinates. And what are the consequences of violation? Slow decision making in case of complete centralization, and risk of misuse of authority in case of complete decentralization. Next principle is framed is scalar chain. According to this principle, organizations should have a chain of authority and communication that runs from top to bottom and should be followed by managers and the subordinates. Scalar chain is the chain of superiors ranging from the highest authority to the lowest level in the organization. It states superior-subordinate relationship and authority of superior in relation to subordinates at various levels. Scalar chain is crucial to ensure unity of command and effective communication to the organization. Now, what are the advantages of this principle? Orderly, smooth flow of information and clear lines of authority and responsibility relationship. And further, better relations between subordinate and superior due to absolute respect for authority. Consequences of violation is information may not flow in orderly direction, authority and responsibility relationship will not be clear, and unhealthy relations between subordinate and superior, and lack of unity of command. Next principle is order. What is this? According to this principle, a 14th principle of management, employees in an organization must have the right resources at their disposal so that they can function properly in the organization. In addition to social order, the work environment must be safe, clean and tidy. If there is a fixed place for everything and it is present there, then there will be no obstruction of work. Essentially, it means orderliness. It will lead to increased productivity and efficiency. Now, for example, there should be a specific place for workshop for the foreman so that he can be easily contacted whenever necessary. What are the advantages of this? Efficient use of resources and smooth and systematic working of the organization. What are the consequences of violation? Inefficient use of resources due to loss of time and energy in search of resources and lack of discipline in the organization. Now students, let's go ahead. What's the next principle framed by Henri Fayol? It is equity. What is equity? What is this principle? According to this principle, there should not be any discrimination among the employees on the basis of religion, language, caste, sex, belief or nationality. Equity refers to just and fair behavior of managers towards workers. This will ensure loyalty and cordial relations between superiors and subordinates. It must be noted that Fayol does not rule out use of force sometimes. He also advocates the use of strict treatment for lazy personnel in order to send the message that everyone is equal in the eyes of management. Now, for example, workers performing similar jobs should be paid same wages. Now, what are the advantages of this? Improved satisfaction and motivation level among employees and cordial relations between employees and management. And what are the consequences of violation? It decreases in satisfaction and motivation level of employee, unhealthy relation between employee and management. Now the next principle framed by Henri Fayol is stability of personnel. What is this in this principle? In this principle, there should be proper efforts to achieve stability and continuity of tenure of personnel. This management principle of the 14th principle of management represents deployment and managing of personnel, and they should be in balance with the service that is provided from the organizations. Fayol was of the view that employees should be selected and appointed after due and rigorous procedure. Once selected, they should be kept at their position for a minimum period and must be given reasonable time to show results. Continuous changes will create instability and insecurity among employees, and they would lead to leave the organization. It will also raise the cost of recruitment, selection and training. So, it is always in the interest of the enterprise that its trusted, experienced and trained employees do not leave the organization. For example, if a new employee is appointed, then the employee must be given time to settle down and to adapt to the new environment and working conditions. What are the advantages? Advantages of this principle: increases in efficiency of the employees due to feeling of job security and better reputation and goodwill of the company. And what are the consequences of violation? Unnecessary labor turnover creates an atmosphere of disbelief and discipline, a decline in the reputation of the company. Now, the next principle is initiative. According to this principle, workers should be encouraged and given an opportunity to take initiative in making and executing the plans. Fayol suggested that employees at all levels should be encouraged to take initiative in work-related matters. Initiative is a powerful motivator of human behavior and a source of strength for the organization. However, initiative does not mean going against the established practice or doing something against the discipline. For example, an organization must have an employee suggestion system, and employees with useful suggestions should be rewarded. What are the advantages of this? Increase in mental growth and feeling of belongingness in employees, and increases commitment of employees towards the organization. And what are the consequences of violation? Leads to frustration among employees, and lack of initiative may create an atmosphere of non-cooperation. Next principle is esprit de corps. What is this principle? According to this principle, management should take reasonable steps to develop a sense of belongingness and feeling of team spirit among employees. Management should promote teamwork, especially in the large organizations, in order to achieve organizational objectives. And a manager should replace I with we in his conversation to give rise to spirit of team spirit. So production is a team work and requires full support and cooperation of all members. Now, for the example, if a department has to achieve a target, then according to this principle, it is the duty of each member of the department to ensure that target is achieved on time, even if any member is unable to fulfill his individual target. It means that employees should not concentrate only on achieving their individual targets, but on achieving group target. What are the advantages of this? Develops an atmosphere of mutual trust and helps in achievement of group goals and leads to coordinated relations between management and workers. What are the consequences of violation? Lack of team spirit, and employees may not cooperate with each other, and group goals may not be achieved, and unhealthy relations between management and workers. So students, we have discussed today on significance of principles of management and 14 principles framed by Henri Fayol. So in the next session, we will discuss on traditional and modern implications of Fayol's principles. And with that, now today, let's wind up for the class, and next time we will discuss on traditional and modern implication of Fayol's principles and Taylor's principles of management. Thank you. Bye-bye.